Good morning, everyone. Our family is gathering.
Yes. Welcome to virtual Greenacre.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Wow.
There's another person in the waiting room. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. And even if it's not your first time joining us, welcome to you too. This is part of our daily Abdu'l-Bahá program. This was the week that Abdu'l-Bahá visited Greenacre from August 16th to the 23rd. And so each day, our intrepid scholar, author, actress, filmmaker, Anne Perry takes us on a journey of what happened that day at Greenacre. The talk that Abdu'l-Bahá gave, be some photos and some stories perhaps of his stay. And so Anne, there was a song that Anne wanted me to learn so I could sing. And it's, I want you to be happy, to laugh, smile, and rejoice in order that others may be made happy by you. But not a lot of people know that that's not the whole quote. The whole quote is, I want you to be happy at Greenacre. And I'm totally serious here. That's what it says. I want you to be happy at Greenacre, to laugh, smile, rejoice in order that others may be made happy by you. So there is a song out there, but it didn't have Greenacre in it. So I added it. And I tried to learn the ukulele piece, but it was way complicated. Well, it wasn't complicated, it was just really difficult chords. So I'm gonna sing it a cappella. So this is what Abdu'l-Bahá said. He said it while he was here, right, Anne? I'm assuming.
No, he said it when he was in New York before he even came here. He was thinking about Greenacre.
Oh, gosh, okay, cool. All right, so here we go. This is Abdu'l-Bahā's words. I want you to be happy at Greenacre, to laugh, to smile, rejoice. I want you to be happy at Greenacre, to laugh, to smile, rejoice in order that others may be made happy, may be made happy, happy by you, happy by you, happy by you, happy by you. I want you to be happy at Greenacre, to laugh, to smile, rejoice. I want you to be happy at Greenacre, to laugh, to smile, rejoice in order that others may be made happy, may be made happy, happy by you, happy by you, happy by you, happy by you.
Thank you, Jessica.
My pleasure.
I'm so excited that you've put that, you can sing it now, and you can sing it at many gatherings. And how wonderful that now the phrase at Greenacre is added. So that was a perfect start to our day today. And I'm so excited to see my friend Pamela, whom I haven't seen in a long time. Welcome. And today's program is very text heavy. So before I bring up the PDF, I wonder how many people would like to read, because I'm going to write your names down and just call on you perhaps. Okay, there's Susie, Pamela, who else? Nigel, of course, and of course the Samane and Angela, Carmilla, I'm not sure who's who, but we'll just say the young ladies there. And who else? Fadia, okay. Okay, anyone else that I'm missing?
Excuse me, Anne.
Yes.
Sorry, and Jessica. May I just introduce Melanie Schwartz? She's from Zug in Switzerland. And
Oh, how wonderful. So let's see the countries we have represented. I know there's UK, Canada. Raise your hand if you're from the UK. Okay, at least one. All right, Canada. Okay, Brian. Ireland, normally we have Anne here. Oh, Anne is there. Okay, good. Anne, yay. And do we have Denmark today? Not yet, but Denmark may come, right? And now we have Switzerland. Melanie.
Hi, welcome.
Oh, nice to see you.
To be here with you. I heard about this meeting from Nigel. He told me yesterday, and then I thought I will have a look and see where he's going to. And now I'm so happy to be here.
Well, we're so happy to have you. That's exciting. And then I think there's people from the United States here as well. Who's from the United States? Okay, a number of us are. All right. So I will really miss this group.
Jordan.
We have two
I'm
more
from
days.
Jordan.
Oh, and where?
Jordan.
Jordan?
Jordan, the Middle East.
Isn't that astonishing? From Jordan, yes. Fadia joined us yesterday, so that's great. So we're an international group. And of course, it works perfectly with the theme of our study, which is Abdu'l-Bahá, who promoted internationalism and the oneness of humankind. So I'm going to share my screen now. And I'll just call upon people. And then if more people want to volunteer, we can do that. Because as I said, there's a lot of text for today. So today is the 6th day of his time at Greenacre. It was a Wednesday, and we'll start off with Mahmúd. So, well, Nigel, do you want to start us off?
Oh, I'd be happy to. What I don't know, Anne, is if you can really hear. This is a different microphone because I'm in a different room for a minute. Can you hear me?
We can hear.
Okay. So Abdu'l-Bahá, Greenacre, Mahmúd writes, during the visit of a group of Baha'is with the master, a young girl came in and said, I have come to ask for your assistance. Please tell me what I am fitted to do, that I may occupy myself with it. The master asked, do you have trust in me? She replied, yes. Then he said to her, be a perfect Baha'i. Associate with Baha'is, study the teachings of Baha'u'llah, then you will be assisted in whatever you undertake to do. She then said, I am a good Jewess. The master then said, a good Jew can also become a Baha'i. The truth of the religion of Moses and of Baha'u'llah is one. Turn towards Baha'u'llah, and you will acquire peace and tranquility. You will hear the melody of the kingdom. You will stir the people's souls, and you will attain the highest degree of perfection. Be assured of this. When she heard the master's words, she was so impressed that she threw herself at his feet and wept. Abdu'l-Bahá explained some aspects of the divine philosophy and teachings to the pastor of the Portsmouth Church. The pastor said that he had included some of these teachings in his pamphlets, and some people had taken offense. The master said, constancy in all things brings fruitful results.
Thank you. All right. Now, Susie, do you want to pick it up? Oh, right here. Mrs. Tatum said.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Mrs. Tatum said, I feel so dejected today. I am unhappy with myself. The master replied, this is a sign of progress. The person who is satisfied with himself is the manifestation of Satan, and the one who is not satisfied is the manifestation of the merciful one. An egotist does not progress, but the one who thinks himself imperfect will seek perfection for himself and will progress. If a man has 1,000 good qualities, he must not look at them. He must search always for his shortcomings. For example, if a man has a building which is well constructed and fully decorated, but which has a small crack in one of its walls, he will no doubt forget the rest and turn his whole attention to repairing that crack. Furthermore, the attainment of absolute perfection for a human being is impossible. Thus, however much he may progress, he is still imperfect and has above him a point higher than himself. And the instant he sees this point, he will not be satisfied with himself. It is for this reason that when someone called Christ good master, he replied, there is only one who is good, and that is God. Shall I go on?
If you want to, go ahead.
Sure. Another lady told Abdu'l-Bahá that she had lectured in America on universal brotherhood and unity. She was pleased to see that the master in America promulgating these high ideals, and that she was going to continue to spread these teachings in the Western states of America. The master said to her, we must endeavor as much as we can to exterminate spite and perversity so that people may be delivered from the shackles of superstition. You must serve in this way and become the cause of the unity of the world of men. He spoke in the same vein with everyone. There were two people, Dr. and Mrs. Moore, who had been antagonistic towards the cause of God from the very beginning. However, they had become so attracted and transformed that they came into the master's presence with great humility and pledged themselves to the service of truth. The transformation of such people is a momentous task which will produce great results.
And of course, we're very much engaged with that task now, right? It's a Herculean task for all of us. So here's Kate Ives, the first American woman and the first archivist at Green Acre, sitting on the porch of her house. And so now, let's see, Pamela, would you like to read this next section?
In the afternoon, Abdu'l-Bahá went by automobile to the home of Mrs. Kate Ives and sat next to the driver, which is where members of his entourage usually sit. He sat there until the party arrived. When a number of friends had gathered, he went with them to the hill of Monsalvat. How is that pronounced?
Monsalvat.
Monsalvat. As soon as he arrived, about 400 people sang songs of praise to him in unison. He addressed this gathering on the necessity of founding the School for the Investigation of Religions, which Miss Farmer wished to establish on that mountain. A moving picture of this gathering was taken.
So before we finish the description of all this is about a third of the picture. And maybe tomorrow I'll have the whole picture in here, but you see Fred Mortensen on this end. Now, Abdu'l-Bahá is over here, which I'll show you in just a minute. I have another section of the picture, but recently I got the question, well, what song did they sing? And I have no idea. I don't know how we could uncover that. Maybe some skilled researchers in the future will learn what song they sang, but it's wonderful to think of 400 people. Although I think, again, Mahmúd exaggerates sometimes when he may not literally be counting everyone, but it was a very large group. Now, some of you may not have been to Monsalvat, even if you've been to Green Acre. So I can hold up this map and I can show you that the main campus of Green Acre is here. And the property that we're talking about now is about 2.5 miles kind of inland and up a hill and past the Elliott Library. It's a whole wonderful area of its own that's just sitting there, full of woods. It's a beautiful spot. And we'll read more about it today. But it was sometimes referred to as Sunset Hill, sometimes Monsalvat as one word, and sometimes Mount Salvat as 2 words. And the name comes from something about Parsifal and the Holy Grail. And there were early on Sarah had these ideas of knights of Monsalvat, that there were people who would serve this property and this ideal that she had that we'll learn more about today.
We also call it Winter Hill now as well.
And Winter Hill, we associate particular with that property where Frank and his family lives now. It's Greenacre owned, and it's the entry point to Monsalvat, with paths going up into the area. So, and several Baha'is own properties around there, which is wonderful. Okay, Pamela, do you want to continue?
Yes. The gathering was also characterized by a renewed enthusiasm, ardor, and love, which seemed to draw all hearts. It was an auspicious day. He then went to Mrs. Esther Annie McGee's home, where he dined with a group of friends. He spoke to them about the proofs and evidences of the existence of God and the composition of elements according to the will of the Almighty.
Thank you. So that was Mahmúd's. And now this passage is going to be from Ivy Drew Edwards, who was a younger woman than Sarah, who served Greenacre. And you notice how tall she is. She may be the very tall woman in the picture that we originally identified as Sarah Farmer, but I believe it might be Ivy now. Okay, so it was during his historic visits to Monsalvat that Abdu'l-Bahá shared with Sarah and others his vision of the future of Greenacre. There are several accounts of these visits. Ivy Drew Edwards recalls. So Fadja, would you like to start us off here?
From Julia Culver.
Mm-hmm.
Julia Culver, Mrs. Klebs, Sarah Farmer, and I went on a carriage ride to the master. He said it was important that Sarah Farmer visualize the great university her efforts had made possible. He drove us all over Sunset Hill, twice pointing out certain trees to Sarah Farmer. She seemed to understand what he was telling her and frequently shook her head in assent. When we were almost at the top of the hill, Abdu'l-Bahá took Miss Farmer's hands in his and said very loudly, "This is hallowed ground, made so by your vision and sacrifice. Always remember, this is hallowed ground, which I am pointing out to you."
And hallowed is an interesting word, meaning holy or sacred, special. So this is significant. Okay, please continue.
At the top of the hill, Abdu'l-Bahá stopped the carriage and directed Sarah Farmer to take his hand. He led around the area for about 5 minutes, talking to her all the time and frequently pointing his finger in one direction or another. Each time, Miss Farmer would smile and shake her head. We could not tell what was said, and Miss Farmer never told us. When they came back to the carriage, Abdu'l-Bahá said to all of us, "This is where the first Baha'i university will be built." He extended his arms to show that the whole top was to be involved. Then he said, pointing to a spot in the center of the area, "This is where the second Baha'i temple in the United States will be raised." In reality, all this has been built and is right now ready to become a material reality whenever the Supreme Concourse finds mankind purified enough to bring about its consummation.
Thank you. And it reminds us, of course, of when he put the spade in the earth in Wilmette and said the temple is built, right? This idea that it's coming and it's in this sphere of vision, but will become manifest at some point. Okay, would you like to finish this section?
Then he turned to Miss Farmer and said, "You will be revered about all American women one fine day. You will see." Then he said to all of us, "You may all be able to see this university with your own eyes if your prayers to do so are sincere. This will be the finest university on the planet and will draw students to it from all countries of the world. People will stream up and down the hill to some department in the university and to the temple for prayers, which shall be in the midst of it.
So, of course, thank you. For many years, I've been trying to visualize this university and hoping I could teach there. But in another context, Abdu'l-Bahá said, it is a reality, but a little patience is needed. So I may be one that's helping from the next world, but at any rate, we'll see what happens in terms of this beautiful prophecy that many people do not know about, right? It is published in our Greenacre book. Okay, unfortunately, we have no record of the actual words Abdu'l-Bahá spoke on Monsalvat. As he walked around the property, he spoke intimately with a smaller group of the friends. Accounts of this vary slightly, but many have the same details. Alfred E. Lunt, who was present, included his own account in his report of the Secretary of the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States and Canada, 1931 through 32. Now, Nigel, why don't we have you read this statement by Alfred Lunt?
We can never forget the Master's prophetic saying when he stood on Mount Salvat in Greenacre and definitely pointed to the spot where the second Mashriq al-Asqar in America would be built, and beside it, the great institution of learning. These projects, he said, were ordained matters.
So in another reminiscence, Ivy Drew Edwards recalled, and why don't we have one of the young ladies from that household read here?
Those who walked around with the master were Fanny M. Morse, Margaret Klebs, Julia Culver, Fred Lunt, Celia Richmond, and myself. He drove as far as the old well, then he dismissed the carriage. He walked from there to the beech grove and offered a prayer near a large boulder. Then he walked through several fields, talking as he went, waving his hands, first to the right and then to the left, as he talked, returning just below where to people were gathered. Dr. Leroy's car was there waiting for him. Then he turned and asked Mr. Lunt to take a photograph. I was thinking about Miss Farmer's ideals and visions about Monsalvat, and Abdu'l-Bahá returned to me and said, "You may tell Miss Farmer that her visions and ideals of Monsalvat will be revealed. I do not give this as a prophecy, but a fact." I did not understand what the master's statement that was not a prophecy, but a fact. So I asked Janab Fadil in 1920 when he was here about it, and he explained to me the buildings were already expected on the plane of reality. That is why so many have seen them in the visions through the years.
And I've actually met people who have seen these buildings in visions and made sketches and things like that. It's kind of exciting to visualize this part of the future and to wonder how it will all come about. So Harry Randall also described this experience in a letter. Any volunteers?
Can I read?
Sure.
He went to the top of Mount Salvat, which is a part of the Greenacre property there, and he told us that on this spot, a great Mashriq al-Asqar would be built, and that the whole hill would be covered with institutions of learning, science, and religion, and to impress us with the importance of this center. He said already it had been created and was not a prophecy alone, and the Mashriq al-Asqar hung low over this place, Harry Randall. Even before his Greenacre visit, Abdu'l-Bahá had referred to the future of Mount Salvat. In a letter dated 1907 from Ali Quli Khan to his wife Florence, Khan wrote, "Yesterday I had another glorious tablet from our Lord in his own hand about the temple to be built later on Mount Salvat. He begins by writing, 'O thou accepted servant of God, just think he accepts me, and I am very happy. Miss Farmer has also a little tablet through me.
Thank you. So indeed, he wrote, excuse me, he wrote 28 tablets to Sarah Farmer over the course of some years. And this is another section of the photograph. Now, I believe this might be Kate Ives here. I'm sorry, this, tomorrow I'll have a better version of this photograph, I think. But as you see, the master is here, and then there's the photograph extends. This is a third of the photograph, and it extends out from there. And Juliet Thompson is in another section, but her face is turned looking to the master, which is interesting. We found her in the photograph, but she's not facing forward. Okay, why don't you continue? I'm sorry, I don't know the three of you, your names individually, but go ahead and continue.
On Wednesday, August 21st at 3 o'clock, Abdu'l-Bahá gave a talk to about 50 Bahá'ís and 100 non-Bahá'ís on Monsalvat, which is about 2 miles from here and is part of the Green Acre property. There is a photograph of this gathering on Monsalvat with Abdu'l-Bahá at the center, Ella Robarts.
Okay, thank you. So now we have this talk was given in 1945, looking back at the history. So we have several people who wrote diary excerpts and memories after the fact, but looking back. So a volunteer to start us off here?
I'll read right now.
Sure.
In 1912, my sister, Grace Robards, had rented a large house opposite the entrance to Greenacre in order to prevent it from being taken by people who are not interested in Greenacre. My sister asked me to take charge of the house, which was then called Elliott House. She and Ivy Edwards had prayed very earnestly in this house that if Abdu'l-Bahá should come to Greenacre, he would come to this house. In 1912, I rented the rooms to several Baha'i women. On Friday, August 16, 1912, Abdu'l-Bahá arrived in Greenacre. One lady offered him her home, but he graciously declined to accept her kindness and took room under number 16 on the 3rd floor of the inn. During his memorable visit of 1 week, Abdu'l-Bahá addressed several large audiences, mainly in the Iranian, which stood where the tennis court now stands. After his first meeting, as I was hurrying up the avenue to Elliott House, I suddenly saw Abdu'l-Bahá quite near me, and he said, "Oh, are you here?" The next morning, as I was sitting on the veranda, I saw Abdu'l-Bahá coming down the steps of the White House in the corner of the avenue which Mr. and Mrs. Kinney occupied at the time. I did so wish that he would come over to the veranda, and he came straight over. In no time, there were 16 of us there. I said, "Abdu'l-Bahá, would you like some honey, which I have just gotten from the country?" To which he replied, "Very good." When he had eaten some of this honey, he said to me, "Do you eat honey spiritually?" And I said, "No, Abdu'l-Bahá, I am afraid I don't." A lady handed him a photograph of his little grandson, and after looking at it for a moment or two, he put it in his pocket, which seemed to surprise her. But may he not have been thinking, may he not have been blessed the child by doing so? One evening after his public talk, Abdu'l-Bahá took several of his friends up into his room. There had been at this time a man from the Isle of Malta who was teaching some of us about diet, but we soon found out that Abdu'l-Bahá did not approve of him, and he said to me, "You must eat, you must eat meat." Oh, then I said, "Oh, Abdu'l-Bahá, I'm not fasting, but only dieting, and I feel so light that I could just fly." And Abdu'l-Bahá arose from a chair and said, "Yes, you will fly, and you will die if you do not eat." Much to the chagrin of many of my vegan friends.
Well, he was very practical in giving advice to people, wasn't he? So this is the old well on Monsalvat, and this is sort of what the woods look like up there.
Anne, I do have a question. That photograph, the large photograph, I've been to Monsalvat, but maybe only just a teeny tiny piece of it. And it's so heavily wooded. Was there any place that really was taken in Monsalvat? I guess there must have been a clearing there at some point. What do you think?
I'm not exactly sure where it was, but I visualize, you know, from Winter Hill into the woods, I visualize that area, you know, and that is a cleared out area right behind the house at Winter Hill.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think it must have not been, I think there must have been a clear, if they drove all around it,
right.
Yeah, it must be very different than it is now.
Right. It's just been untouched for so many decades that it's, you know, and you have to arm yourself against mosquitoes and so forth when you go up there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's see where we are.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I just had a question about the honey eating and the spiritually. What did that mean?
I don't know. And maybe he was trying to make a metaphor about the spiritual life, but it seems a little bit like an awkward moment because she probably didn't know what he meant, you know. And I don't know how to interpret that. Any other thoughts?
My immediate assumption is, you know, are you reveling in it? Are you, I mean, it's the sweetness of life, right? Spirituality is the sweetness of life. I think there's another place where he actually says, take a little bit of honey in the morning and say, Ya Baha. And so you're really like using that sweetness as a door to the sweetness of spirituality. That's just immediately my assumption, but there could be, you know, 72 meanings for everything. So.
I think honey's mentioned in the writings when it talks about honey-laden lips or honey-laden words or something. I don't know, just maybe referring to kind words or whatever.
Yeah, he says to eat the honey from my sugar-shedding lips.
And if they poison your lives, sweeten their souls.
All these illusions. Well, honey is the one food that never goes bad. You know, I think it can last thousands of years. So it's a rich metaphor.
And the prayer during the fast caused me to taste, oh my Lord, the divine sweetness.
Yes. Wonderful. Okay, Julie, do you want to read this next part?
Sure, thanks, Anne. He drove as far as the old well, then he dismissed the carriage. He walked from there to the beech grove and offered a prayer near a large boulder. Then he walked through several fields, talking as he went. Did we read this?
Well, it's similar to another account.
Okay. Then he walked through several fields, talking as he went, waving his hands first to the right and then to the left as he talked, returning just below where the people were gathered. Then he turned and asked Mr. Lunt to take a photograph of them. While he was taking a photograph, I was thinking about Miss Farmer's ideals and visions about Monsalvat, and Abdu'l-Bahá turned to me and said, "You may tell Miss Farmer that her visions and ideals of Monsalvat will be realized. I do not give this as prophecy as it is already fact."
So this was an older picture, but where, you know, there were fields here and you could see the water of the river from the top of the mountain. Okay, there's another excerpt from Margaret Klebs, and this is from 1935. And so she was the one, well, you'll read it. Okay, who would like to volunteer? Pamela, you want to read again?
Sure. Beloved Baha'i friends, in the hour when you all assembled to celebrate the anniversary feast of our beloved Abdu'l-Bahá, August 20th, I will be with you in spirit, and my supplication and prayers will join yours in fervent adoration of him who walked with holy feet on the ground of our cherished Green Acre. In times to come, it will arise in full splendor, fulfilling the glorious prophecies of our blessed Master Abdu'l-Bahá. The great genius of Sarah J. Farmer, with her unconquerable devotion and will power, prepared the way for the appearance of our Holy Master. Sarah J. Farmer's name will never be forgotten and blessed through all the ages to come. Never to be forgotten is the picture when the beloved one held her in his arms, driving slowly around the Green Acre fields. Blessed are we who could witness it. May every soul coming to this blessed spot receive a new inspiration, a new desire to consecrate its life to our blessed cause, which in its power is encircling the whole world.
And of course, for Sarah, it must have been very exciting to return to her dear Green Acre, which she hadn't seen for 3 years. Okay, here's Edith Inglis's account of Abdu'l-Bahá dining with them. Now, remember, this is the same day, and it refers back to the 19-day feast, which was yesterday. But of course, some of these memories are all kind of interwoven in these accounts. All right, a volunteer.
I'll volunteer.
Okay.
Edith Ingles' account of Abdu'l-Bahá dining with them at Prime House, WH. On the day Abdu'l-Bahá gave the 19-day feast at Mrs. Flynn's house, Green Acre, which we have since commemorated as the Memorial 19-Day Feast, we knew that he was going to visit Monsalvat next afternoon, which was August 21st, 1912. On that afternoon, I hurried away from Monsalvat to get things ready for tea and dinner for Mother, Mrs. Jonathan McGee, Esther Annie McGee. For Mother had previously invited Abdu'l-Bahá. We occupied that summer a big house known as Prime Cottage on a steep hill overlooking the old road in Elliott. Leaving Monsalvat, Abdu'l-Bahá was driven in an automobile to our door, arriving about 5 o'clock. We served tea on the porch to Abdu'l-Bahá, his secretaries, and 14 or 15 guests. Then he went upstairs to a bedroom and lay down on a bed for a nap, which lasted until I waked him for dinner at 7. We had made the dining room a bower of wildflowers, woodbine, ground cedar, most of it green stuff with goldenrod as a relief. What a picture it was as Abdu'l-Bahá sat at the head of the table, his kind countenance, white beard, white hair, and white robe set in a frame of native flowers. At his right hand, Abdu'l-Bahá placed the young man who had ridden on the bumpers all the way from Minneapolis in his eagerness to see him. There were 19 at the table. Carrie Kinney, Mrs. Edward Kinney, cooked the dinner. Pilaf of chicken with rice, Persian style, served with Persian salad of lettuce, tomato, mint, onions, and cucumbers. Dessert was watermelon, its pink heart in vivid contrast with the greenery of the table and the white figure of the host. The beverages were water and tea. Louise Culver and her friend Dorothy Thompson, my sister Harriet McGee, and I waited on the table. As I recall, there were no speeches, but Abdu'l-Bahá from time to time spoke to the young men from Minneapolis and the others. His remarks and their replies, translated by one of his secretaries. We waitresses were so busy bringing in dishes and carrying out plates, etc., that I have no recollection of what was said. At 8 o'clock, all left the table and entered the living room, where many people from Green Acre Inn and the neighboring townspeople had assembled to meet Abdu'l-Bahá and hear him. We were so busy clearing away the dinner table that I don't recall what he said, though I suppose you have his words in another record. The room was crowded. About 10 o'clock, the cars were driven from the door down to the old road for safe going, since the descent was rocky and rutted. Abdu'l-Bahá walked down the 2 flights of steep stairways to the road, leaning on the arm of my husband, William O. Inglis, with whom he shook hands, American fashion, in saying goodbye.
And of course, we wish we had videotape of all these events, right? Wouldn't that be wonderful to have the actual text and translation of the talks and so forth? All right, shall we have another volunteer?
Sure, I'll read.
Okay.
Before entering the automobile, Abdu'l-Bahá gave us all his blessing and went on his way to Green Acre Inn. In those days, the land was clear and one had a beautiful view of the great bay and river leading into it. Many of the Elliott townspeople attended this meeting. After the meeting, Abdu'l-Bahá, the Persians, and a few of the friends went to our house, known as the Prime House, situated on the old road. My mother, Mrs. McGee, and I were occupying it that summer. After tea was served, Abdu'l-Bahá retired to a bedroom upstairs to rest until dinner, which we were giving that evening. A couple of my sister's friends, Louise Culver and Dorothy Carson, were visiting us, and we earlier in the day gathered great quantities of fern, trailing vines, and flowers to decorate the dining room. Carrie Kinney, who was familiar with Persian cooking, supervised the preparations for the meal. Finally, when all was ready, I asked one of the Persians if he would announce dinner to Abdu'l-Bahá. He said, "I'll tell you what to say and you go up." "All right," I said, and repeated the phrase over and over on my way upstairs. Upon entering the room, I spoke my piece, whereupon Abdu'l-Bahá sat on the side of the bed and rocked with laughter. What had happened? Had I lost the pronunciation, or had the Persian played a joke on me? I never did find out. After dinner, a meeting was held at the house, Abdu'l-Bahá speaking, after which he departed for the inn. Thus ended a perfect and full day.
And of course, we wish we knew what he had said, right? Whether it was a joke or not. Okay, thank you. So another volunteer?
I will read.
Okay, go ahead.
I remember seeing dear Miss Farmer driving in a car to her old home. Bittersweet, where Abdu'l-Bahá gave a talk to friends who had gathered there. Miss Farmer had been brought over from Portsmouth, where she was living in a nursing home or sanitarium. An interesting visitor to Green Acre this time was a young man from St. Paul, Minneapolis or Maine?
Yeah,
Minneapolis?
Minneapolis. Yep.
Minneapolis. Albert Hall, a lawyer of that city, had become interested in him. He had been in trouble and served a prison term. Mr. Hall told him the faith, and when this young man heard that Abdu'l-Bahá was in Green Acre, he determined to see him, and being poor, rode the bumpers of trains from the west. What does it mean, Mr. A?
A good friend.
Good friend outfitted him in fresh clothes. Abdu'l-Bahá bestowed much interest and attention upon him. Perhaps there are many other incidents I might relate, but you will hear from others. God bless you all, and be ever thankful for coming into the faith. It is the light of the world this day and age. Elizabeth Inglis.
Yes.
He walked over.
Go ahead.
He walked over to the bureau and gave me some bread, which a friend had brought to him, and said, "Eat this." I began sharing it with the friends as we were filling out of his room. My sister was directly behind me and whispered half aloud, "Ella, did you not hear Abdu'l-Bahá tell you to eat it?" I ate every crumb of it by degrees. At this time, Miss Farmer was ill in a sanitarium in Portsmouth, but was driven up to Greenacre to see Abdu'l-Bahá for a few moments. And we can imagine how happy this little visit made her feel. One night, we were just shutting up Elliott house when a young man arrived at the door and asked if there was a Persian staying here. I did not think of him, meaning Abdu'l-Bahá, and said, "No." He looked a little like a tramp, so I advised him to go over to Mr. Kinney, and he could answer his questions as to whether or not Mr. McNutt or a Mr. Lunt was here, which he did, and Mason Remy took him into his room where he could bathe himself, for he had come all the way from Minneapolis, partly by train, but chiefly on the rails of a freight train. This man was so determined to see Abdu'l-Bahá that he took this unusual trip, as it was the only possible one for him at that time. How many have paid such a price for the privilege of coming into the presence of the center of the covenant?
Thank you. And yesterday we talked more about Fred Mortensen, and I just, I'm reflecting on how Abdu'l-Bahá seated him on his right, which was considered the place of honor next to a speaker or someone of importance. And so again, he went against the social custom of class and, to honor Fred Mortensen, and then invited him to spend a week with him afterwards, or 10 days, I think. Okay, shall we have another volunteer? Susie?
When he arrived at the inn, Abdu'l-Bahá welcomed him with open arms and made him his guest at the inn, and later paid his railway fare back to his home. The young man soon became a Baha'i and is now an active worker in the cause. Abdu'l-Bahá told Mrs. Kinney to tell me that he would give a feast in our house on Tuesday afternoon at 3 o'clock. The weather was perfect, and there were about 100 people on the veranda and on the lawn, and even across the road. Abdu'l-Bahá gave us a beautiful talk, which you are here to read this afternoon. This feast today is in commemoration of that feast, the feast of Abdu'l-Bahá. On Wednesday, August 21st at 3 o'clock, Abdu'l-Bahá gave a talk to about 50 Baha'is and about 100 non-Baha'is on Mount Salvat, which is about 2 miles from here. And this is a part of the Greenacre property. There is a photograph of this gathering on Mount Salvat with Abdu'l-Bahá in the center, here in the Old Bull Library, which we can see before leaving this gathering. Abdu'l-Bahá told us there would someday be a Baha'i university on Mount Salvat.
Thank you. So now this is the last one we have to read. It's so we might have we might break it up to 2 readers or so. Volunteer.
I'll begin.
Okay.
Louise Thompson's diary at Elliott, Maine, July 28, 1962. Abdu'l-Bahá spoke under the pines, Leicester, on non-essentials, nature as contrasted with phenomenal beings. He drew a great distinction between the activities by which man satisfies a want or alleviates a discomfort, and those activities which bring enjoyment to themselves. He pointed out the satisfaction of animal needs has no enduring and eternal quality about it. He said, when a man is thirsty, he drinks water. When he is hungry, he eats food. But if a man be not thirsty, drinking water gives him no pleasure. And if his hunger is already satisfied, food is distasteful to him. He said, this is not so with spiritual enjoyment. Spiritual enjoyments always bring maximum joy. The love of God brings endless happiness. These are joys in themselves and not elevations. The life of the animal is more simple than that of man. Animals have all their needs satisfied for them. All the grains of the meadow are free to them. The birds build their nest in the branches of trees, and the palaces of kings are not so beautiful. If earthly needs were all, then the animals are better supplied than men. Man has another food, the heavenly manna of the knowledge of God. All the divine prophets and manifestations appeared in this world that this heavenly manna might be given to man. This is the food which fosters spiritual growth and strength and causes pure illumination in the souls of men. They become filled with the breaths of the Holy Spirit. They receive knowledge of God in those virtues which belong to the world of humanity. They attain to the very image of God. What greater joy is there than this? When they invoke God's favor at the divine threshold, their minds become open. They enter into spiritual fullness and make discoveries. By this, he enjoys ecstasies of the spirit and sees the world illumined. They are endowed with insight. They become in full tune with the bounties of God and see them face to face, acquiring in themselves the virtues of the manifestations. Thus it is that man shall attain to the uttermost of the holy ones and the saints.
Thank you. All right. Do we have a final reader?
I'll read.
Okay.
If man could not attain to this illumination and these bounties, the animal world would be better than he, for it is not deficient in anything. When man is deprived of the illumination of God, he feels a lack and a shortcoming on his part. God created in us a divine Holy Spirit, the human spirit, with its intellectual powers, which are above the powers of nature. By this, he enjoys ecstasies of the spirit and sees the world illumined. The tree and the stone have not this power. They have no mind or soul. Therefore, they are excused. This power gives man effectual control over nature. He is enabled to discover reality and bring invisible things into the visible, enabling him to render effective the will of God and give it material station. This is what is meant by His Holiness Baha'u'llah when he said, "Verily, we have created thee rich. Why have ye made yourselves poor?" And Christ, when he said, "The Father is in me, and I in you," it was this power that through Baha'u'llah said, "Noble have I made thee. Wherewith dost thou abase thyself?" This power distinguished you above all other creatures. Why do you devote it only to your material condition? This great gift should be used for the acquisition and manifestation of the bounties of God, that you may be established in the kingdom of God among men and attain to happiness in both worlds, the visible and invisible.
Thank you. So all of that gives us kind of a rich deepening for today about the day Abdu'l-Bahá spent at Green Acre. So now we have some questions, and you may not know the answers from the text, but you can guess, although I think we have gone over these things. So one, Monsalvat, also written Mount Salvat, and also M-O-U-N-T, Salvat, and called Sunset Hill, is A, near the inn on the main property of Green Acre, or B, a distance of 2.5 miles from the main campus, past the Elliott Library and near some tennis courts. Who knows the answer?
B.
Yes. Okay. And again, if you've if you've gone to Green Acre but haven't seen it, it's because there's rarely tours given up there. I mean, I know I've been on some that I've sort of arranged, but if you ever go back, perhaps you can ask if it's possible to go up, and you'll want to wear socks and shoes and protect yourself from mosquitoes and such. And you also need a guide because you can get lost up there. It's a large area. Any rate, according to some eyewitness accounts, Abdu'l-Bahá said that in the future, Monsalvat would be the site of a large sporting arena, would be the site of more housing for Green Acre guests, would be the site of a Baha'i temple and a university, or would be the site of a dance hall and restaurant. What do you think?
C.
C, yes, of course. And perhaps we can all visualize it in our imaginations. Among the houses he visited on August 21st was that of Horace Hawley, who lived in Winter Hill near Monsalvat, Stanwood Cobb, who lived near the inn, Kate Ives, the first American woman to be a Baha'i and the first Elliott archivist, or Louis and Louisa Gregory, who lived across the road from the Green Acre entrance.
C.
C, okay, Kate Ives. Now, Horace Hawley did not live there then. I think he came later when after the first NSA was elected there at Green Acre. And there was an old typewriter that was his that is still there somewhere. Stanwood Cobb also came later, and he did have a house nearby. I know because I visited him on the porch of his house a number of times, and he would read our poems and he would swim in the river. But then the river became too fast. Any rate, Green Acre staff will tell you not to go swimming in the river now. Louis and Louisa Gregory did move to Green Acre later, and they did live across the road from the Green Acre entrance in a small house. And at that time, it was illegal for Louis Gregory to own property. So some Caucasian Baha'is bought the house for them. Any rate, these are details. But when Mrs. Tatum said, "I feel so dejected today, I'm unhappy with myself," the master replied, A, this is a sign of progress. B, eat this apple and you will never be dejected again. C, be happy, I want you to be happy in Green Acre. Or D, go talk to Sarah Farmer, she will cheer you up. Which did he say? A.
ABC.
Isn't that a consolation to us? Because I think we all experience times when we're tired of ourselves or kind of disgruntled with ourselves. And we can read that talk and realize that's a sign of progress. Okay, a photo was taken on Monsalvat with blank believers. Mahmúd said that the day was blank. Was it a few believers? And he said the day was very pleasant. Many, and he said the day was auspicious. A dozen or so who had walked with him on the property, and he said the day was remarkable. Or was it 4 people, and it was one of the best days so far in America?
B.
B, right?
B.
Many and auspicious. Okay, you guys all passed the quiz. And you were great listeners today. And I'm going to really miss these talks.
I know. This is delightful.
We have 2 days left of the visit, and they are being recorded, so you can always go back to them, or perhaps others will want to watch these and wish that they were here with us, right? Jessica, Nigel, go ahead.
I was just thinking as we were going through that of a parallel between hearing these various accounts, some mostly similar but with slight differences or discrepancies, and thinking about the 4 Gospels of the New Testament and thinking about how these were the same 4 that had gone, for example, to the Mount and heard the Beatitudes, or various other things that Jesus did, and then related it to the best of their memory and experience. And how if you have one source you can say, well, maybe they didn't quite hear that right, or perhaps they missed it a bit. But then if you have 3 or 4 or 5 people corroborating something, then it's more likely to be quite close to accurate. Although it would have been lovely to have heard what was said when she went up the stairs to tell him that dinner was ready.
Exactly. And it strikes me, some of these things aren't really published yet. They're just snippets from diaries and such. They're not all in this Greenacre book. And perhaps we need to work on that, and to, as you say, the more people that have these memories of specific things, then it is corroborated. And so thank you, Nigel, for that. And perhaps you'll write something about it. I'm noticing the chat, which I hadn't really looked at before, but one question that Jessica might want to tackle: does Greenacre offer a land acknowledgement for Greenacre? What was the indigenous nation that occupied the land where Greenacre was built?
Yes, we do. When we have a larger program, I haven't done it here since we're coming every day, but this is the land of the Abenaki people, who are part of the Wabanaki Confederacy. So you may have heard Abenaki, you may have heard Wabanaki. They're not the same thing. The Wabanaki Confederacy is made up of the Abenaki, Penobscot, Passamaquoddy, and Maliseet Micmac peoples. And this land was really where the Abenaki were. And there's unfortunately many efforts. Actually, part of the reason why I am here is to reach out to Indigenous peoples and make those relationships. And unfortunately, there are very few in this area of Maine. This is ground zero for colonization, people. It has been long. Where I'm from, Wisconsin, it's totally different. Minnesota, South Dakota, where I've lived, it's just a completely different animal, making relationships with folks. Here, it's very hard to find people. They are around. They have not all died. They are definitely here, but very far and few in between, and no community, unfortunately. There is in Vermont. There is an Abenaki community in Vermont, but we are working very hard to establish relationships, which we have done with individuals, but not at a community level yet. So that is in process.
Thank you for that wonderful answer. And I know that there are some other questions in here. For example, Monsalvat is number 49 on the map. So if you have the Greenacre book, you can look at that. And then your question about, does this home still exist? I'm not sure where the prime house was exactly, but we can ask Roseanne, because she's more of the local historian that knows the properties a little bit more than I do.
It would be so good to know where the first American Baha'i woman's house was. If it's still here, we should have a plaque. We should acquire that property if possible, but there's a lot of properties we should acquire if possible. So,
right, yeah. So, okay. Anything else from the chat that we should go over? And then I wonder if we could close today, if Jessica would be willing to sing us her song one more time. And this is the first time you've sung it, right, to any gathering, and you might as well share it with us a second time.
My pleasure. So if you weren't here for the beginning, this is a song that was taken from a tablet of Abdu'l-Bahá, which a lot of Baha'is have heard. It says, "I want you to be happy, to laugh, smile, and rejoice, in order that others may be made happy by you." And actually, the text, they often take the Greenacre part out, and it is, "I want you to be happy at Greenacre, to laugh, smile, and rejoice, in order that others may be made happy by you." And Sue made a very good point. Abdu'l-Bahá is not telling us, I want you to pretend to be happy, or I want you to look happy, or I want you to fake being happy. It's actual happiness. So here's the song. I want you to be happy at Greenacre, to laugh, to smile, rejoice. I want you to be happy at Greenacre, to laugh, to smile, rejoice, in order that others May be made happy, may be made happy, happy by you, happy by you, happy by you, happy by you. Thanks, friends. You're so sweet.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we could say we were the first audience to hear your song. So
Well, it's not my song. I just added Greenacre to the
no,
song.
your version of the song. So
Yeah.
and you sang it. So I remember the first time I sent her a little suggestion, I signed it the Muse. You know, couldn't you learn this song? And she did. It's wonderful. Okay, dear friends. Well, we hate to say goodbye today, but we'll see you all tomorrow and the next day. And think of it, Greenacre can always live in our hearts, as Abdu'l-Bahá can, right? We can always recall the days he spent there and the days he spent in many places, including other countries. And we can rejoice in the fact that we are privileged to know about this journey and to be the recipient of his blessings and his love. So go forth with your day and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, friends.
Thank you.